This is HOA Spot. I saved every receipt and every timestamp. She was already screaming before I even opened my front door. "I am the reason this neighborhood stays civilized," Barbara Nelson shouted, her breath making frost clouds in the -15 air, clipboard in a clear plastic sleeve aimed at me like a weapon. "You are in violation of Snow Removal Protocol subsection 4B, and if you do not clear your walk within 1 hour, the fine jumps to $200. I stood there in my red parka and red knit beanie, ice scraper still in one hand from clearing my car, staring at the woman who ran Wintergate Terrace Reserve Association like a personal dictatorship. It was 7:45 in the morning. I had shoveled my walk at 6:30, the same as I did every morning since the snow started 2 weeks ago. The sidewalk in front of my townhouse was clear. Hers, 3 units down, still had a 2-inch base of packed snow that had been there since Monday. "I shoveled 2 hours ago," I said, keeping my voice level even though my chest was already tightening with the familiar burn of anxiety. "The walk is clear." Barbara tilted her head, pixie-cut dark brown hair sticking out from under her red earmuffs, and tapped the clipboard with one gloved finger. "Not according to the photographic record taken at 0700 this morning. There was visible ice accumulation along the curb transition. That is a slip hazard. That is liability. That is $200 if not remediated by 0845. I moved to Quebec City 6 months ago because I needed a reset. My last job had burned me out completely. Panic attacks every morning, insomnia every night, and I took a community event staffer position here because it was manageable, predictable, and involved helping people plan farmers markets and holiday craft fairs instead of drowning in corporate metrics. I picked Wintergate Terrace Reserve because the listings made it look quiet, the townhouses were affordable, and the pictures showed tree-lined streets and a nice mailbox cluster area where neighbors could chat. What the listings did not mention was that the HOA president lived 3 doors down and treated every snowflake like a personal insult, or that Wintergate Terrace Reserve Association had a 100-page winter emergency enforcement addendum that got weaponized the second the first flakes hit the ground. The stakes were my mental health. I had clawed my way back to something stable, and Barbara was tearing it apart one fake violation at a time. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I had started taking every single morning after the first bogus notice. Time-stamped picture from 6:32 this morning. Sidewalk clear. No ice accumulation. Barbara did not even look. Those photos are not compliant with association documentation standards. Only HOA-approved vendors may submit photographic evidence for dispute resolution. "That is not in the rules," I said. "It is in the winter emergency addendum," she said, and smiled with her mouth only. "You should have read the rules before you moved in, sweetheart." That was the first time she said it. It would not be the last. And every time she said it, I wanted to scream, but I had learned the hard way that showing emotion only made her escalate faster. So I took a breath, nodded, and said I would double-check the walk before the deadline. She turned and walked back toward her unit, boots crunching through the snow, stainless travel mug in her hand like always. I stood there until my fingers went numb around the ice scraper, then went inside and checked the HOA portal. The notice was already uploaded. Violation code W-4B. Photographic evidence attached. The photo showed my sidewalk at a weird angle with a timestamp of 7:03, and yes, there was a thin skim of frost along the curb edge where runoff had refrozen overnight. The kind of thing that happens on every single sidewalk in the neighborhood every single winter morning. The fine schedule was $200 if not cleared by 8:45, escalating to $500 if not cleared by noon. I went back outside with a bag of sidewalk salt and scattered it along the curb just to cover myself, even though the sun was already hitting that section and it would melt on its own in 20 minutes. I took another photo, uploaded it to the portal with a dispute comment. Then I sat at my kitchen table and tried to stop shaking. That was day 14 of winter. I had received 9 notices so far. 3 for shoveling time window violations, 2 for snow pile placement too close to the street, 1 for ice dams on my gutter even though the HOA was responsible for gutter maintenance per the bylaws, 1 for failing to clear snow from my assigned parking space within 4 hours of snowfall cessation even, though I had cleared it within 2, 1 for tracking snow into the common hallway which left wet carpet, and 1 for allowing my car to drip slush onto the parking lot which created a slip hazard. Barbara had received 0. I know because I started documenting her property the same week she started targeting me. Her sidewalk had snow base, her gutters had worse ice dams, her car left slush trails, her snow piles were shoved directly onto the grass median in violation of landscape protection rules. But every time I submitted a complaint with photos, the portal response was the same: complaint reviewed, no violation found, case closed. I had tried talking to the property management company twice. The first time, the manager said Barbara was a valued volunteer leader and perhaps I should try being more cooperative. The second time, the manager said I was generating an unusual volume of disputes and maybe I should consider whether this community was the right fit. The message was clear: Barbara could do whatever she wanted. I could not. My neighbor 2 doors down, a guy named Eric, who worked from home and had a doorbell camera that covered half the street, knocked on my door that afternoon while I was getting ready for work. He was holding his phone. "You need to see this," he said. The video was from 2 nights ago, time-stamped 11:47 at night. It showed Barbara walking up to my front door in her gray wool coat and red earmuffs, clipboard in hand and taping a notice to my door. Then she stepped back, took a photo of my sidewalk with her phone, and walked away. The notice was dated that morning. "She is backdating them," Eric said. "She is doing night patrols, taking photos whenever she wants, then posting the notices later with morning timestamps so it looks like you are in violation during the official inspection window." I let him talk because every word was helping me. I had suspected something was off with the timing, but I did not have proof until now. Eric sent me the video file. I saved 3 copies. That same night, I got an email from the management company. Subject line: Parking Pass Suspension Notice. Body: due to repeated violations of snow and ice safety protocols, your assigned parking pass is hereby suspended pending a compliance hearing. Suspension effective in 48 hours. 48 hours meant Friday night. The forecast was calling for a major storm Saturday into Sunday, 8 to 12 inches with whiteout conditions. If I lost my parking pass, I would have to park on the street during a snow emergency, which meant my car would get plowed in or towed, and I would have no way to get to work. I called the management company, got voicemail, left a message, called again an hour later, voicemail again, sent an email demanding an explanation and a hearing date, got an auto reply saying the office was closed for the evening. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, Barbara was waiting at the mailbox cluster when I came out to salt my walk. The mailbox cluster was the unofficial neighborhood courtroom, the place where everyone gathered to argue about violations and complain about each other, and Barbara treated it like her personal bench. She had her clipboard. She had her stainless mug. And she had a portable thermal printer, the kind you plug into your phone, sitting on top of the mailbox like a tiny judge's gavel. "I have an updated violation count for you," she said, not even pretending to check her mail. "As of this morning, you are at 11 active violations with outstanding fines totaling $1,400. Per the Winter Emergency Enforcement Addendum, any resident exceeding 10 violations in a 30-day period is subject to immediate lien filing." I stopped walking. A lien meant they could freeze my ability to sell or refinance and eventually force a sale to collect for $1,400 in fake fines. "Those violations are under dispute," I said. "I have photographic evidence for every single one." "Your photos are not compliant," Barbara said, exactly the same way she had said it before, like she was reading from a script. "Only HOA-approved documentation may be submitted. All of your disputes have been reviewed and denied." "Reviewed by who?" I said. "By me," she said. "I am the compliance officer for Winter Emergency Enforcement. The board delegated that authority to me in October." She tapped her phone screen, and the little thermal printer started buzzing and spitting out a thin strip of paper. She tore it off and handed it to me. It was a lien pre-filing notice, dated today, with my name and unit number and the total fine amount. "You have 72 hours to pay in full or submit a payment plan proposal," Barbara said. "After that, the lien gets recorded with the county and your credit report gets updated." I took the paper. My hands were shaking again, that cold shock that started in my chest and spread out to my fingers. I had about $1,200 in my checking account. Paying the fines would wipe me out. Not paying meant a lien and a trashed credit score and probably losing my townhouse eventually. "I will see you at the compliance hearing," I said. "There is no hearing," Barbara said. "Winter Emergency Enforcement operates under expedited procedures. You were notified of that in your move-in packet." She picked up her mug, tucked the clipboard under one arm, and walked away, boots crunching through the snow. I stood there at the mailbox cluster until a passerby holding up a phone with the screen turned away walked past and gave me a sympathetic look. And then I went inside and started making calls. First call, a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes. He listened to my summary, asked a few questions, and then said it would cost me a $500 retainer just to send a demand letter, and if it went to actual litigation, I was looking at $5,000 to $10,000. I did not have 500, let alone 5,000. Second call, the County Housing Advocacy Office. They said HOA disputes were civil matters and they could not intervene, but they could send me a packet of sample letters and a mediation referral list. Third call, Eric. He answered on the first ring. "I have more footage," he said before I could even explain why I was calling. "She has been doing this to other people too. I have video of her putting notices on 3 different doors over the past 2 weeks, all of them at night, all of them backdated." "Can you send me all of it?" I said. "Already done," he said. "Check your email." I opened my laptop. The email had 4 video files, each one showing Barbara doing night patrols, taking photos, posting notices, dates and timestamps on everything. It was perfect. But I did not send it to the management company yet. I let her talk, because every word was helping me. I needed more. I needed something that would force the management company to act, not just ignore me again. That afternoon, I went to every unit in my building and knocked. I explained what was happening. I asked if anyone else had gotten bogus notices. Out of 12 units, 7 people said yes. 2 of them had already paid fines just to make it stop. 3 were disputing. Two had moved out early and eaten the lease break fee because they could not deal with the harassment anymore. I started a group chat, shared the doorbell footage, shared my comparison photos showing Barbara's violations. One guy in the chat said he had submitted a records request to the management company 2 months ago asking for the Winter Emergency Enforcement Addendum, and he never got a response. That was when I realized the addendum might not even exist. I went to the HOA portal and searched the documents library. The master bylaws were there, the architectural guidelines were there, the standard rules and regulations were there. No winter emergency addendum. I sent a formal records request to the management company citing state HOA transparency laws. I asked for a copy of the Winter Emergency Enforcement Addendum, the board resolution delegating enforcement authority to Barbara, the compliance review procedure, and the documentation standards policy. I sent it certified mail and copied the entire group chat. 2 days later, the management company responded. They said the addendum was still being finalized and was not yet available for distribution, but it had been approved by the board in October and was being enforced on an interim basis. That was a lie. You cannot enforce rules that do not exist. But it also meant I had them on record admitting the addendum was not finalized. The storm hit Saturday night, exactly as forecast. I spent Friday afternoon moving my car to a side street 2 blocks away where parking was technically legal during snow emergencies, because I was not going to give Barbara the satisfaction of having me towed. The snow started around 8 at night, thick heavy flakes that piled up fast, and by midnight we had 6 inches with whiteout bursts where you could not see across the street. I was up at 5 the next morning with my shovel, clearing my walk in the dark with a headlamp, and by 6 I had my sidewalk done and my parking space cleared even though my car was not in it. I took photos of everything, time-stamped, geotagged, the works. Barbara was out at 6:15. I watched her from my front window. She walked the entire row of townhouses with her phone out, taking photos of every single sidewalk, every driveway, every parking space. She spent extra time at my unit, circling my snow pile, taking photos from multiple angles. At 7, I got an email. New violation notice. Code W9C, prohibited snow pile placement during active snow emergency. Fine, $300, escalating to $700 if not relocated within 2 hours. My snow pile was at the edge of my designated patio area, exactly where the bylaws said it was supposed to go. I had checked. But the notice claimed I had piled snow onto the common area sidewalk, which was a flat lie. I went outside. My pile was where I left it. But there was a second pile now, about 3 feet onto the sidewalk, and it had been shaped to look like it had been shoved there from my patio. Barbara had added snow to frame me. I took pictures. I measured the distance between the 2 piles. I shoveled the sidewalk pile back onto my patio and took more pictures. Then I went to Eric's unit and asked if his camera had caught anything overnight. It did. 2:47 in the morning, Barbara came out with a shovel, scooped snow from the median, and dumped it onto the sidewalk in front of my unit. She shaped it into a rough pile, took a photo, and left. I saved the video. I was building a file now, and it was getting thick. Sunday afternoon, the snow stopped. Monday morning, I got another email. This one was not from the management company. It was from an attorney representing Wintergate Terrace Reserve Association. Subject line, cease and desist harassment of HOA leadership. The body of the email said I had been engaging in a pattern of targeted harassment against Barbara Nelson, including filing frivolous complaints, making defamatory statements in a group chat, and creating a hostile environment. The email demanded I immediately stop all communications regarding Miss. Nelson, remove her name from any group chats and cease photographing her property. Failure to comply would result in legal action for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I read it 3 times. Then I forwarded it to the group chat with one word, wow. The responses came fast. This is insane. She is the one harassing us. They are trying to scare you into shutting up. I called the attorney's office, got a paralegal, asked for clarification on what specific statements were considered defamatory. The paralegal said she could not discuss the details, but I should consider retaining my own counsel. I did not have money for counsel. But I did have something better. I had been holding on to the trump card, the HOA attorney email, and I was about to deploy it. Because 3 weeks ago, before all of this escalated, I had sent a calm, professional email to the HOA's attorney of record asking whether the Winter Emergency Enforcement Addendum had been properly adopted under state law, whether the board had validly delegated enforcement authority, and whether the documentation standards policy was enforceable. I did not mention Barbara. I did not accuse anyone of anything. I just asked neutral legal questions and cited the relevant statutes. The attorney had responded, and the response was a polite, carefully worded letter saying that upon review, the winter emergency enforcement procedures currently being applied did not appear to comply with the association's governing documents or state law, and the firm was advising the board to suspend enforcement pending a full lega L review. The attorney also said the firm could not continue representing the association on this matter due to potential conflict of interest, because the enforcement actions appeared to involve individual board member misconduct rather than legitimate association business. That email was dated 11 days ago. I had not shared it with anyone. I had been waiting for the right moment. The moment was now. I replied to the cease and desist email. I attached the attorney's email. I copied the management company, the entire board, and everyone in the group chat. My reply was 2 sentences. Please see the attached correspondence from your own HOA attorney, dated 11 days ago, advising suspension of enforcement and resignation from representation due to misconduct concerns. I will not be ceasing any communications, and I will be filing a formal records complaint with the state if the association does not immediately provide the requested documents and reverse all contested fines. I hit send. Within an hour, the group chat exploded. People were forwarding the email to neighbors who were not in the chat. Someone posted it on the neighborhood Facebook page. The management company's phone started ringing because people were calling to ask why they were still enforcing rules the lawyer said were illegal. Barbara called me at 4 that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. She did not leave a message, but 10 minutes later I got a text from a number I did not recognize. You just made a huge mistake. This is not over. I blocked the number. That night, I got home from work and found an orange cone sitting in the middle of the street in front of my townhouse. It was a standard traffic cone, the kind road crews use, and it had been placed directly in line with my parking space. There was no construction happening, no utility work, just a cone. I moved it to the curb and parked. The next morning, there was a notice on my door. Violation Code T3A, unauthorized relocation of traffic safety equipment. Fine, $500. The notice included a photo. It showed the cone in the street and my car parked in the space, and the timestamp said 6:42 that morning, which was 15 minutes before I left for work. I went outside. The cone was back in the street, same spot. I called Eric. He checked his camera. The footage showed Barbara dragging the cone into the street at 11:30 the night before, taking a photo, then leaving. At 6:40 that morning, she came back, moved the cone to the curb, waited until I drove away, then dragged the cone back into the street and took another photo. She was manufacturing hazards so she could fine me for causing them. I saved the video. I filed another dispute. I sent another email to the management company with the footage attached. This time I did not get a canned response. I got a phone call from the property manager, a man named Ron, who sounded tired. "Look," he said, "I am going to be straight with you. Barbara has been a problem for a long time. We have had complaints about her from a dozen residents over the past 2 years. But she is the HOA president, and the board backs her up, and our contract says we enforce what the board tells us to enforce. If you want this to stop, you need to go to the board, not us." "The board is 3 people," I said. "Barbara is one of them. The other 2 do whatever she says." "Then you need to call an election," Ron said, "or you need to file a lawsuit, or you need to move, because we cannot do anything." He hung up. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my laptop. I had evidence, I had witnesses, I had the attorney email, but none of it mattered if the management company would not act, and the board would not act, and I did not have money for a lawyer. And that was when the side complication hit. The next morning was foggy, a thick frost fog that rolled in overnight and turned everything into a gray blur. My doorbell camera, the one I had installed to document Barbara's night patrols, was completely fogged over. The lens was covered in condensation and frost, and you could not see anything. I wiped it off. It fogged again in 10 minutes. Barbara showed up at 7:15, clipboard in hand, stainless mug in the other. She stood at the edge of my driveway and stared at the camera, smiling. "Shame about the weather," she said. "I guess your surveillance system is not as reliable as you thought." She walked away before I could respond. That same day, I got another notice. This one was not uploaded to the portal. It was taped to my door, and it was handwritten on HOA letterhead. "Effective immediately, per Winter Emergency Safety Protocol, a contracted vendor will be accessing your property to remove hazardous ice buildup on your rear gutter system. Access will occur within the next 72 hours. No resident presence required." It was signed by Barbara. I called Ron at the management company. He said he did not know anything about a vendor access, and it was not on the schedule, and I should contact the board. I called the board's official email. No response. 2 days later, I came home from work and found a ladder leaning against my building and a man on my roof with a heat gun scraping at the gutter. My back patio had boot prints in the snow. The side gate, which I kept locked, was standing open. I went outside. "Excuse me," I said. "Who authorized you to be on my property?" The guy looked down. "HOA sent me. Gutter maintenance." "I did not request gutter maintenance," I said, "and per the bylaws, the HOA is responsible for gutters, not individual owners. So why are you here?" He shrugged. "I just go where they tell me. You got a problem, call the office." He finished scraping, packed up his gear, and left. I checked the gutter. He had not done anything except scrape off some ice that would have melted on its own in 2 days. But he had also left gouges in the vinyl siding near the roofline, and one of the gutter brackets was bent. I took photos. I filed a damage complaint. I sent another email to Ron demanding to know who authorized the access and whether the HOA was going to pay for repairs. Ron replied an hour later, "Per the bylaws, the HOA has the right to access units for emergency maintenance." The work order was submitted by the compliance officer. If you believe there is damage, you can file a claim with the association's insurance, but you will need to prove the damage was caused by our vendor and not by prior wear. The compliance officer was Barbara. She had sent a vendor to my property without permission under a fake safety excuse, and now I had damage that I would have to fight the insurance company to fix. I was losing ground. Every day, a new violation, a new notice, a new escalation. The fines were piling up, my parking pass was gone, my credit was about to tank, and my mental health was cracking. I stopped sleeping. I started having panic attacks in my car before work. I could not focus during events, and my boss noticed. Twice, she pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay. I said I was dealing with some HOA stuff, and she nodded like she understood, but I could see the concern in her face. The HOA was not just fining me, it was breaking me. And then Eric knocked on my door with his phone in his hand and said, "You are going to want to see this." The footage was from the night before, 11:53 at night. Barbara, in her gray coat and red earmuffs, walked up to my front door and taped another notice. But this time, she did not leave. She stood there for a moment, looked around, then walked to the side of my building and peered into my back patio through the fence slats. Then she walked around to the mailbox cluster, opened the box with a key, and pulled out a stack of my mail. She flipped through the envelopes, took a photo of one with her phone, put the mail back, and walked away. She had opened my mailbox. That was a federal crime. I saved the video. I called the non-emergency police line. I explained what happened and said I had video evidence. The dispatcher said an officer would come by to take a report. The officer showed up 2 hours later. I showed him the footage. He watched it twice, took notes, and said he would file a report and forward it to the postal inspector, but I should not expect immediate action because mailbox tampering cases were low priority unless there was actual theft. I asked if he could at least talk to Barbara and tell her to stop. He said he could do a courtesy visit, but without a clear victim impact or ongoing threat, there was not much he could do. He left. I felt like I was screaming into a void. That night, I sat down and wrote out everything. Every violation, every notice, every piece of evidence, every video, every email. I organized it into a timeline. I highlighted the patterns, backdating, fake hazards, unauthorized access, mail tampering. I noted the attorney email and the lack of a valid enforcement addendum. I built a case file that was 50 pages long. And then I filed a formal records complaint with the state HOA Oversight Office. I attached everything. I cited the statutes Barbara had violated. I requested an investigation, a cease and desist order, and a formal audit of the association's enforcement records. The state office replied in 3 business days. They said they had received my complaint and would review it, but the process could take 60 to 90 days, and they could not intervene in active disputes. 60 to 90 days meant Barbara would have plenty of time to lien my property, destroy my credit, and force me out. I needed faster action. The next board meeting was scheduled for Thursday night. It was listed on the HOA portal as a closed executive session, which meant residents could not attend. But state law said any meeting where fines or liens were discussed had to be open to affected residents. I sent an email to the board demanding access under state law. I cited the statute. I said I would show up whether they liked it or not. Barbara replied within 10 minutes. Executive sessions are not subject to open meeting requirements. Your presence is not required or desired. Any attempt to disrupt association business will be considered trespassing and handled accordingly. I showed up anyway. The meeting was held in the clubhouse, a small building near the mailbox cluster that was usually locked except for events. I got there at 6:55, 5 minutes before the meeting start time. The door was locked. I knocked. Barbara opened it. She was holding her clipboard and her stainless mug, and her face was already set in that cold smile. "This is a closed meeting," she said. "State law says I have the right to attend any meeting where my fines are being discussed," I said. "And I know I am on the agenda because you sent me a lien notice 2 days ago." "Your lien is an administrative matter," Barbara said. "It does not require board discussion. This meeting is about other business." "Then you will not mind me sitting in the back and confirming that," I said, and I stepped forward. She blocked the door. "If you do not leave immediately, I will call the police and have you removed for trespassing." "Call them," I said. She pulled out her phone and dialed. I stood there and waited. A police cruiser pulled up 8 minutes later, and the same officer who had taken the mailbox tampering report got out. He looked at me, then at Barbara, then back at me, and sighed. "What is going on?" he said. I explained the situation. Barbara interrupted twice to say I was harassing her and disrupting association business. The officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, let him finish." I finished. I showed him the state statute on my phone. The officer read it, looked at Barbara, and said if he is subject to a lien discussion, he has the right to be present. You need to let him in or postpone the lien. Barbara's face went red. "This is outrageous. He is not subject to discussion tonight. The lien is administrative." "Then you will not mind him attending," the officer said. Barbara stared at him for a long moment, then stepped aside. I walked in. The clubhouse was a single room with a folding table at the front and a few rows of plastic chairs. 2 other board members were sitting at the table, both of them looking uncomfortable. I sat in the back row and pulled out my notebook. The meeting started. Barbara ran through standard business, landscaping contract renewal, clubhouse rental policy updates, reserve fund allocation. 20 minutes in, she said, "Now we move to enforcement actions." She pulled out a printed list. There are currently 4 residents with outstanding fines exceeding $1,000. Per the bylaws, any balance over $1,000 triggers automatic lien filing. The liens will be recorded next week. She did not say my name. She did not say anyone's name. But I knew I was on that list. I raised my hand. Barbara ignored me. I stood up. "Excuse me. I would like to know if I am one of the 4 residents on that list." "This is not a public comment period," Barbara said. "State law says I have the right to address the board on any matter affecting my property," I said. "Are you telling me I do not have that right?" One of the other board members, a man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses, cleared his throat. "Barbara, maybe we should let him speak." Barbara's jaw tightened. "Fine. You have 2 minutes." I walked to the front. I am one of the 4 residents with outstanding fines. Those fines total $1,700. Every single one of those fines is based on a violation notice that was either backdated, fabricated, or issued under a policy that does not exist. I have video evidence of the president conducting night patrols and posting notices with false timestamps. I have video evidence of her creating fake hazards and then fining me for them. I have video evidence of her tampering with my mail. And I have an email from the association's own attorney saying that the enforcement procedures being used are not legal and that the firm is resigning due to misconduct concerns. I pulled out a printed copy of the attorney email and handed it to the board member with glasses. He read it. His face went pale. If you are enjoying this HOA chaos, hit the like button and subscribe for more wild neighborhood drama stories. Barbara, the board member said, is this true? Did our attorney resign? That email is taken out of context, Barbara said. The attorney was referring to procedural questions, not misconduct. The email specifically says individual board member misconduct, I said, and it is dated 11 days ago. Why was the board not informed? The other board member, a woman in her 50s, leaned forward. Barbara, we need to see the full correspondence. If the attorney resigned, we need to know. This is not the time, Barbara said. Actually, it is, the man with glasses said, and I am moving to table all lien filings until we have a full legal review. The woman seconded. Barbara slammed her clipboard onto the table. You are making a mistake. This resident has been harassing me for weeks. He has defamed me in group chats. He has filed frivolous complaints. He has tried to undermine every enforcement action I have taken. And now you are going to reward that behavior by letting him off the hook. I am not asking to be let off the hook, I said. I am asking for the enforcement actions to be reviewed by someone who is not the person I have filed complaints against. That is basic fairness. The man with glasses looked at Barbara. I think we need to bring in a neutral third party to review the enforcement records. This has gotten too complicated. Barbara stood up. If you do that, I will resign. Effective immediately. The room went silent. Then the woman said, I accept your resignation. Barbara stared at her. Then she grabbed her clipboard, grabbed her stainless mug, and walked out. The door slammed behind her. The two remaining board members looked at each other, then at me. We are going to need some time to sort this out, the man said. In the meantime, all enforcement actions are frozen. No new fines, no liens, nothing until we get independent legal advice. I nodded. Thank you. I walked out into the cold night air and stood in the parking lot, shaking. Not from cold, from relief. It was not over yet, but it was the first time I had won anything. The next morning, I got an email from Ron at the management company. Subject line, Interim Enforcement Suspension. Body, effective immediately. All enforcement actions under winter emergency protocols are suspended pending board review. All outstanding fines issued under those protocols are under dispute review and will not proceed to lien filing. Residents with pending violations may submit documentation for reevaluation. I forwarded it to the group chat. The responses were immediate. Finally, about time. This is huge. That afternoon, the neighborhood Facebook page exploded. Someone had posted the attorney resignation email. Someone else posted Eric's doorbell footage showing Barbara doing night patrols. Someone else posted a compilation of fake hazard videos. The comments were brutal. People were tagging the management company, tagging the board, demanding answers. Barbara posted once, I have resigned from the board effective immediately. I will not be responding to further harassment or defamatory statements. Then she deleted her account. 2 days later, I got a certified letter from the management company. It was a formal reversal. All 11 of my violations were being withdrawn. All fines were being refunded. My parking pass was being reinstated. And the letter included a written apology signed by the interim board president, stating that the enforcement actions had been reviewed and found to be inconsistent with association policies and state law. The letter also said the board had retained a new attorney and was conducting a full audit of enforcement records for the past 2 years. Any resident who believed they had been improperly fined could submit a claim for review. Within a week, 19 residents submitted claims. The total amount of contested fines was over $30,000. The management company fired the interim board and hired a temporary management firm to run things while new elections were organized. The temp firm immediately suspended all enforcement except for genuine safety hazards, and they sent out a notice saying the winter emergency addendum had never been properly adopted and was not enforceable. Barbara's favorite fee, the one she had used to rack up hundreds of dollars on multiple residents, turned out to be completely imaginary in the ledger. There was no line item for snow pile placement fines. There was no policy defining what counted as a violation. She had been making it up as she went, and nobody had checked. 3 weeks after the board meeting, I got a call from Ron. The association has agreed to mediation with a neutral third party to resolve all outstanding disputes, he said. We are also implementing new enforcement oversight procedures and requiring all board members to complete compliance training. And we are revising the winter rules to match state law. What about Barbara? I said. She has been placed on a no-contact directive by management, Ron said. She is not allowed to communicate with you or any other resident who filed a complaint against her. If she violates that, we will pursue a restraining order. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. It was not perfect justice. Barbara did not go to jail. She did not lose her house. She did not even lose her HOA membership because she was still an owner. But she lost her power. She lost her clipboard. She lost her ability to terrorize people with fake rules and fake fines. And that was enough. The snowstorm that weekend was mild, only 3 inches, and I shoveled my walk at a normal time and took no photos and received no notices. The mailbox cluster was quiet. The street was quiet. For the first time in 2 months, I slept through the night. A week later, Eric knocked on my door with a bottle of wine. We are celebrating, he said. The temp board just voted to ban enforcement actions by individual board members. Everything has to go through the management company now, and the management company has to document every violation with timestamps and third-party verification. We sat on my couch and drank the wine and talked about normal things, things that had nothing to do with snow piles or clipboards or thermal printers. It felt like breathing again. Spring came eventually. The snow melted. The frost fogs cleared, and one morning in April I saw Barbara outside her unit, loading boxes into a moving truck. I did not say anything. I just watched from my window as she carried clipboard after clipboard, all of them in clear plastic sleeves, and dumped them into a cardboard box labeled trash. She left 2 weeks later, no goodbye, no forwarding address, just gone. The new board president, a retired teacher named Margaret, who actually read the bylaws before making decisions, sent out a welcome letter. It said the association was committed to fair enforcement, transparent procedures, and treating all residents with respect. It said if anyone had concerns, they should reach out directly instead of letting things fester. I kept the letter. I kept the attorney email. I kept all of Eric's videos. I kept the timeline I had built, all 50 pages. Because the thing about fighting an HOA is that you do not fight with anger, you fight with documentation. You fight with patience. You fight by letting them talk. because every word helps you. And when the moment comes, you deploy the trump card and you do not look back. I still live in Wintergate Terrace Reserve. I still shovel my walk every morning when it snows. I still take photos, just in case. But now, when I check my mailbox, I do not see Barbara standing there with her clipboard and her stainless mug and her cold smile. I see neighbors. I see normal people dealing with normal winter problems. And that is all I ever wanted. The mediation process took another 2 months. The neutral third party reviewed every contested fine, every notice, every piece of documentation. In the end, the association refunded $22,000 to 14 residents. They also revised the entire enforcement policy, created an appeals process, and banned any board member from issuing fines without management company approval. Barbara was named in the final report as the source of multiple procedural violations. The report did not use the word fraud, but it came close. It said her actions had created liability for the association and exposed the board to potential lawsuits. No lawsuits were filed. Most residents just wanted their money back and a promise it would not happen again. I got a check for $1,700. I deposited it and paid off the credit card I had maxed out during the fight. The group chat stayed active. We still use it to share snow updates and warn each other about icy spots, but now it is helpful instead of desperate. Eric moved his camera angle to cover more of the street. He said he did not trust the new board yet, and he wanted to make sure nobody pulled another Barbara. I did not blame him. Winter came again the next year. The first snow fell in November, and I shoveled my walk and salted the curb and took my daily photo, same as always. No notice appeared on my door. No clipboard-wielding HOA president showed up at 7 in the morning. No thermal printer buzzed out fake fines. It was just snow, normal, quiet, manageable snow. I ran into Margaret, the new board president, at the mailbox cluster one morning. She was checking her mail, no clipboard, no mug, just a normal person doing a normal thing. "How is everything going?" she asked. "Good," I said. "No complaints." She smiled. "That is what we like to hear. If anything comes up, let us know. We want this place to work for everyone." I believed her, not because she promised anything, but because she had already proven it. The new board had handled 3 enforcement issues in the past 6 months, and every single one had been documented, reviewed, and resolved without drama. It was not exciting, it was not justice porn, it was just boring, functional HOA governance. And boring was exactly what I needed. I still think about Barbara sometimes. I wonder if she learned anything. I wonder if she is doing the same thing in a new neighborhood, or if losing her power broke the pattern. I do not know, and I do not need to know, because the story is not about her anymore. It is about the fact that I stayed, I fought, I documented, I waited for the right moment. And when that moment came, I filed a formal records complaint and attached the proof so the board could not hide it. That is how you beat an HOA. Not with rage, not with revenge, with patience and evidence and the willingness to outlast them. Barbara thought she could bury me under fake fines and fake rules and fake authority. But fake does not hold up under scrutiny. And once the scrutiny started, the whole thing collapsed. The attorney email was the key. The moment I got that email, I knew I had won. I just had to wait for the right time to use it. And I did. The thermal printer did not save her. The clipboard did not save her. The stainless mug and the red earmuffs and the midnight patrols did not save her. What saved me was knowing that every word she said, every rule she invented, every fake hazard she created was building my case. I let her talk because every word was helping me, and in the end, that was enough. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.